when they are produced in the bottom by these flower-like animals that really look like plants and were considered plants until some centuries ago.
I've been joined by Luis Martey. He's a researcher with UIB University in Bergen. And first and foremost, Luis, you have two projects, but we're now going to talk about Norhydro. Just briefly tell me, what is Norhydro?
Well, Norhydro is a project that concerns about a simple question, which is how many species of hydrozoa do we have in Norway? Right. And particularly benthic hydroids.
Right, and you will then have to explain, a non-biologist like myself, what are these species?
Well, they are animals. They belong to a larger group called Cnidaria that you may be more familiar with because it includes corals and jellyfish. And hydrozoa is actually a large part of this Cnidaria group, and it includes small animals similar to a flower that live attached to the bottom, and they are called hydroids. And they produce the jellyfish that we call Hydromedusa.
All right. Are these species that a person like me can observe using the naked eye?
Yes, some of them are actually large. And if you are a little curious, a couple of them even have like normal, common names. For example, one is called a crystal manet, which is quite large. I would say a little bit of this size. And then you can encounter it sometimes in summer or so. The polyps are large, but they live mostly outside, or it's harder for people to find them. Yeah. Although some live on the algae on the littoral, just outside of your door, or in this algae that you find stranded on the beach or so.
So, whilst researching this, how have you gathered material?
But there are many ways. Basically, they grow on everything that is submerged by a long time. So you can either pick stuff like ropes or explore the boats or the piers at marinas. But also you can go on a boat and take dredges, trolls or grabs, or one thing that we have done with the project is to have this cooperation with people who are actually in the water. So scuba divers or people who do snorkeling. And of course, since I mentioned that there is this jellyfish that is produced by the hydroids, we also use plankton nets to capture those.
How come you decided to spend your time mapping out and researching this particular group?
Well, when you ask a common Norwegian how many species of jellyfish in particular they know exist in Norway, they usually come up with 3 or 4. The brennmanet, because it stinks and is large, and the glass manet is common. But if you take into account the Hydromedusa and the hydrozoa, then you end up with over 100 species occurring in the country. And I was fascinated by how little we know about those. Like, those are the ones that people never recognize.
Right. So chances are that I've seen, touched, or been in contact with jellyfish that I have no idea what are named.
Definitely.
Yeah, right.
They live in the waters near us. And then it came to me even more interesting, the question of when they are produced in the bottom by these flower-like animals that really look like plants and were considered plants until some centuries ago, then it became even more interesting for me to try to bring this, first summarize this knowledge and then bring it to the public as well.
How come, or how would you describe the succession, or not succession, but actually in this case, the success even of the project? Have you reached your goals? Is the project's goals reached?
Definitely. I mean, with these kind of projects, I think the question is simple, but the answer is not. So there is still a lot of room to improve and a lot of blind spots in our knowledge of Norwegian hydrozoa. But Norhydro has increased the number of records by almost 12%. It has increased the number of species observed, but I think that the real success of the project is the people involved. So we have 5 master students working so far for Norhydro, each in their own project. So we're trying to bring this new generation of people who care about hydrozoa, and the collaborations we have started with both Ars Projector in Norway, We have collaborations with 8 other arts projects currently, and also with projects outside of Norway or funded by NFR. So I think that the people actually has been the success with Hydrozoa in Norditro.
Right. So spreading the knowledge and increasing the level of knowledge is part of the success.
So transfer of knowledge and building of competence in Norway and Scandinavia, those were key elements in the makeup of Norditro since the beginning. And those I'm sure we have come closer to achieving the goal.
Very good. Thank you so much for joining us, Luis.
Thank you.